For SB Nation, I'm Brad Wells, and the 4 p.m. Eastern Time, March 4th deadline for teams to tag players as exclusive franchise players, transition players, or non-exclusive franchise players has come and gone, and the free agent landscape has started to solidify somewhat as we wait for the March 12th league year to begin and teams can begin to sign unrestricted free agents. Now, I'm not going to go into a long and drawn-out definition of what an exclusive franchise player or a transition player is because no team designated a player as an exclusive franchise player or as a transition player. However, several teams tagged players as non-exclusive franchise players. Now, what that means is that a team can designate one player on their roster that as a non-exclusive franchise player. And what that means is that the player is perfectly willing and able to go out and negotiate a contract with another team. However, because he's been tagged as a non-exclusive franchise player, that means that if he signs that contract with that other team, if there's mutual interest and they want to sign a contract, well, that other team has to provide the former team with draft pick compensation. And that draft pick compensation comes in the form of 2 first-round draft picks. 2. Basically, what that means is that anyone who's tagged as a non-exclusive franchise player is probably not going to get signed by another team, unless that player is like a huge franchise-level guy like a Tom Brady or Robert Griffin III or an Andrew Luck or something like that. And typically players like that don't really hit the free agent market. So what this means also is that a player that has been designated as a non-exclusive franchise player, that means that this player is to receive a 1-year contract that is the average of the top 5 salaries for that position that the player plays. So if, for example, a quarterback is tagged as a non-exclusive franchise player, that quarterback will receive a 1-year contract worth the average of the top 5 salaries of the other top quarterbacks in the NFL. So that gives you an idea that they basically get a lot of money for 1 year, but there's no years on that contract, and players typically want a lot of money over a longer period of time. So there's the quick and dirty definition. Now we're going to run down the players who were tagged as non-exclusive franchise players. Number 1 is Jairus Byrd of the Buffalo Bills. He was tagged. Michael Johnson. Ryan Clady, the offensive tackle, was tagged by the Denver Broncos. Henry Melton, the defensive tackle, was tagged by the Chicago Bears. Pat McAfee, the punter, was tagged by the Indianapolis Colts. Yes, the punter got tagged as a non-exclusive franchise player. Anthony Spencer was tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. And what's interesting about Spencer is that he was tagged as an outside linebacker and not as a defensive end. He mostly played outside linebacker, but the average top 5 salaries for the top outside linebackers in the NFL is significantly less than the top 5 salaries, the average of the top 5 salaries for defensive ends in the NFL, so it's something worth noting. Randy Starks, the defensive tackle of the Miami Dolphins, was given that tag. And Branden Albert, the offensive tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs, was given the non-exclusive franchise player tag. And then piggybacking that news was the news that the Chiefs have signed Dwayne Bowe to a 5-year deal. Now, it's interesting because coming into the tag deadline, people didn't know, are they going to tag Bowe? Are they going to tag Albert? Well, they ended up tagging Albert. They ended up signing Bowe, so they got to keep both players. Now, the players who were not tagged are actually more interesting than the players who were tagged. Because these players I'm going to name now, were not tagged, they stand a very good chance of becoming unrestricted free agents on March 12th. And those players include Jake Long, former number 1 overall pick, offensive tackle of the Miami Dolphins, Jared Cook, tight end of the Tennessee Titans, Greg Jennings, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Brian Hartline, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, Danny Amendola, wide receiver of the St. Louis Rams, Deshaun Goldson, outstanding safety of the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, Paul Kruger, Donnell Ellerbe, and Ed Reed of the world champion Baltimore Ravens were not tagged. Amazing. Ed Reed, face of the franchise, one of the greatest safeties ever to play, going to go to the Hall of Fame, not tagged, not re-signed. Looks like he will become an unrestricted free agent on March 12th. And for the first time since 2008, the New England Patriots did not tag anyone, which means that wide receiver Wes Welker, offensive tackle Sebastian Vollmer, and Talik Abib, cornerback, are all going to hit free agency unless they sign a contract between now and March 12th with the Patriots. So if your team is in the free agent market this year and they're needing a wide receiver or an offensive tackle, it's a good chance that some very, very good players, especially at the wide receiver and offensive tackle position, they're going to be hitting free agency on March 12th. For SB Nation, I'm Brad Wells.